here I'm going to give an example of using persistent variables in a Matlab function. So what I'm going to write is a function called logMessage, which will take a string argument message and will just print that message to the screen. But the thing that I want this function to do is actually number each of the messages starting from 1 in the order in which they were received. So over here I've written out my example script, so this is how I might call my function. So remember that this is a useful sort of technique to use to actually write down how you would use a function and what you expect that function to do before you write it. So suppose I used it like this, I called it 3 times with 3 different messages, then what I should see on my screen is this. I should see 1 and then the first message, and then 2 and then the second, and then 3 and then the third. So how can I do that? Well, firstly let's write a simple sort of naive version of this that's not going to work. So what I have here is I need some sort of number, right? And let's start it out at 1, say. And then what I want to do is print out the message with the number at the front. So let's concatenate some strings using the square brackets. So if I do num to string on my number, then I want, say, a dot and then a space and then my actual message. And then I want to increment the number, say something like that. Now of course this won't work. Let's have a look at why. If I set a breakpoint here and then run my code, so what's happened here in line 5, so the white arrow means that this function is currently executing, but actually we're really up to somewhere else, and that's over here in this function where we're at to line number 4. So you can see here in the workspace what I have right now is only one variable, which is message, and so that was the argument that was passed to our function. So now if I run through a couple of lines here, then I get number is set to 1, so that appears here in my workspace, and then I display it, and then I increment number. So number is now equal to 2, and then I end my function. And so what that happens then is that this workspace gets deleted, and this number here disappears. So how can I get around this? Let's just run that and see what happens. So we get the number 1 in front of each of them, right? It's clearly not doing what it is that we expect. So the way we solve this is we use persistent variables. So let's have a look at the documentation for persistent here. So persistent x, y, z defines x, y, and z as variables that are local to the function in which they are declared, yet their values are retained in memory between calls to the function. Okay, so that's what we want to do. Now the first thing that you should be wondering is, well, what value does the persistent variable take on before you have defined anything to it? So let's have a look here at their example. So they're defining persistent value here, and they say, is it empty? So the reason why they say that is because of this line here. If the persistent variable does not exist the first time you issue the persistent statement, is initialized to the empty matrix. So that is a way to test whether or not it's the first time. So let's have a look at that pattern. So if is empty number, then we want to initialize it to 1. Otherwise we'll use the value that was previously defined. Okay, let's run our script over here, and notice now we get the result that we expect, 1, 2, and then 3. Okay, what's going to happen if I run this again? Well, let's try it. I get 4, 5, and 6, and then every time I run it, we're incrementing the numbers. So how can I reset this? So you might think, well, let's run clear, right? That deletes variables, but that hasn't helped us. So there's one more form of clear which you may not have seen yet, which is this clear all. So if I run clear all and then run my script again, now we go back to 1. So this is the difference. If I run clear, then it deletes only the contents of the current workspace. If I run clear all, deletes the contents of all of the workspaces, including persistent variables that are defined inside other functions. So clear all, and then I run my script, and then we go back to 1. otherwise the numbers will continue to increment. So clear all, and then we go back to 1.